going to be an absolute pleasure for our next session. So, Seraj, Shruthi, you have joined us both on stage. And Seraj, I'm going to come to you first. Tell me a bit about your role, your company. What does fostering a client relationship mean to you? How does it fit into your organization at AcuityAds?
So I am the Chief Strategy Officer, which means I'm the public face of Acuity. It's a Canadian publicly owned company that offers a whole new platform we launched just last year in the middle of the pandemic called Illumin, which is the first omni-channel consumer journey automation platform. So now in this audience, just so as you know, Chloe, we've been participating at GDS for over 4 years now. We attend many sessions. And it's at these forums where we hear repeatedly from senior marketers in this audience that they want control over messaging at key consumer touch points. They want to focus on business results. And that's precisely what Illumin was designed to do with over $100 million in investment. It's got an iPhone-like intuitive interface, which is completely unheard of in this business for a programmatic platform. So we have two types of segments: marketed direct and media agencies. You know, some marketers prefer to work with us directly, like Shruthi and the ELF do. Others prefer to work through the media agency. We can go either way depending on client's preference. So we've been working directly with brands. It requires a very highly consultative approach, as Shruthi knows, involving data, research, insights, benchmarks to guide the marketing agenda. I mean, this is really what relationship is all about. You know, we don't charge for any of that stuff. You know, that's all part of our investment in the relationship. And we have noticed pays off big time. And frankly, as Shruthi realizes, you know, we are truly an extension of our team.
Great. Thank you so much, Seraj. And as always, thank you so much for joining us and for the last few events as well that we've held here at GDS. It's always great to have you with us. Shruthi, so I'd love for you to be able to set the scene around ELF. And I understand you have a couple of slides to talk us through and contextualize where you're at the moment. Please go ahead.
Great. Thank you, Chloe. So Enjoy Life Foods is the leading allergy-friendly food company. For those of you that don't know about us, we're free from 14 allergens. We're certified gluten-free and verified non-GMO. We've been around for about 20 years, and during this time, we've seen the unfortunate rise in food allergies. It's been up about 70% over the last 10 years. So there's about 32 million people who are diagnosed with food allergies, and about 6 million of which are children. And we have the largest allergy-friendly and certified gluten-free bakery in North America, and we uphold the highest safety standards in the industry. So our mission is really to be the trusted partner for families seeking allergy-friendly snacks. And we were really, you know, as we were thinking about our priorities, the two challenges that we presented to the Acuity team were really around how do we introduce Enjoy Life Foods to more food allergy families, and then how do we do this on a limited budget? And then our final priority, so the direct-to-consumer business was a strategic imperative of ours. How do we grow our online sales on enjoylifefoods.com? And I'm working on the clicker. It's just taking a moment to switch. So you guys can see here, one of our strategic imperatives was really around growing our direct-to-consumer business and the importance of having that one-to-one relationship with the consumer and being able to truly understand what their preferences were and bringing them into the fold, because we have a variety of products in our portfolio. So we designed, as marketers, we want to give the best experience possible. So from the product to the full experience of opening the package. And we designed this trial pack, which is an assortment of snacks from our chewy bars to our cookies to our lentil chips. And it was a great lead offer for consumers to come into the fold and be able to try a variety of our snacks. This was our lead offer, and it really resonated really well with consumers. We partnered with Acuity to push these out in some of the campaigns. We can go to the next slide. And this was some of the creative that
Technology, don't you love it sometimes, Shruti? It never behaves
yeah.
just when you want it to. It will
All
align
right.
with you ASAP, so don't worry.
Okay, so great. So you guys can see some of these posts. So, you know, beautifully curated content from our consumers. They really, you know, when consumers would receive this trial pack, you can see the smile on this little girl, how excited she was, especially to be able to eat snacks that are safe for her, because food allergies can be life-threatening for some consumers. So being able to just be like every other kid and enjoy these snacks, you know, it just makes our jobs really special to be able to come into work and know that we can put the smiles on these faces. So in terms of the content, we were really focused on our direct-to-consumer business and pushing this offer, but we really had a challenge to identify these consumers. So this was one of the things that Acuity was able to tap into because they had a robust database. And, you know, Seraj will get into that. But I think at the end of the day, what Seraj said, the reason why our relationship has been so successful is we truly, from the get-go, treated them as an extension of the team, as a strategic partner who was able to solve some of these challenges we were having. Because prior to working with Acuity, we were really leveraging search and influencers and really had a limited scale. And the Acuity solution really allows us to bring precision at scale for a particular audience that we were going after.
Great, thank you, Shruti. Do we have any more slides to scroll through, or are we there on the slide front? I think, Shruti, I'm really interested to hear something from you. So obviously you did meet at the GDS event 2 years ago, and I'm curious, how has your relationship flourished in those last 2 years? Because obviously it has been quite a 2 years in terms of both business and our personal and socioeconomic lives. So how has the relationship changed?
Yeah, I would say, you know, from the get-go, I mean, being able to set the foundation for truly understanding each other's business and what the capabilities were offered really helped us, because having that strong foundation allowed us to pivot when needed. So D2C was a strategic priority for us. And over the course of the year, we were really pressure tested as a business. We faced some supply chain issues that had to force us to make some decisions, as many brands experienced. You know, the online demand spiked and we were running into fulfillment delays. So in terms of managing that overall consumer experience, we had to communicate to consumers that there were going to be delays in our fulfillment. So from the time that they placed the order to shipping it out, excuse me. So that required us to communicate to the Acuity team that we're going to have to pivot in terms of our campaigns. And we're not necessarily going to be able to drive to our direct to consumer business, and we're going to have to focus more on awareness. And being able to keep them abreast of what's going on from the business side and supply chain decisions that were being made, they were able to pivot quickly and adjust our campaigns accordingly.
Great, thanks, Shruti. And I must say, it looks great. I mean, just from those small clips we saw from your website, it looks like you've done a really great job so far. So huge kudos to both of you. And Seraj, I'd like to hear from your perspective. How has the business relationship flourished over the last 24 months?
So this is number one, I got to give credit to GDS for bringing us together. It's an amazing service you provide. It's fantastic. And frankly, where we met in San Diego, the event, it was a live event. You know, it's hard to imagine now, but there we actually met over dinner, you know, and Shruti was very generous about sharing the challenges for her business. And it was a very insightful conversation that led to us then having full day sessions at the ELF offices in Chicago, where there was a very deep exchange and understanding, which is critical. Relationship building, understanding at that level, building trust is essential. Without that, it's very hard. And of course, at the time, we had no knowledge that we are going to be hit by a pandemic. So we were doing what was routine, right? But I would say that my going in assumption was that the programmatic and omni-media would actually provide ELF not only precision targeting, which means less waste, greater control over media spend, and profit optimization. Those are the things that ELF was looking for. It was the risk management aspect of the programmatic value proposition that turned out to be even more important because of the volatility that Shruti was pointing to. When you have supply chain issues and uncertainties, you have volatile demand, fast growth as it happened, people moving online and so forth. All of that required a rapid movement, which is not easy if you aren't really in control of the way to manage transactions in media electronically, right? So those are some of the things that we were able to manage and were able to work very closely. And there were a bunch of organizational changes we had to make as a result of that, which is all part and parcel of this conversation of how we build relationships.
Of course, great. Thank you, Seraj. I want to actually zone in a little bit. So we've mentioned the last 2 years, and thank you for saying how much you love GDS, Seraj. I'll pass you that $5 note later. But what I would like to hear, can we zone in a bit on the last 12 months? It is obviously the elephant in the room, and not just when we talk about the global pandemic, but economically, socially, politically, it's been quite the year. So Shruti, how have priorities changed for you at ELF? And as a result, how has your relationship with suppliers and partners been tested over the last 12 months?
Yeah, I definitely think from for partners and suppliers, I mean, not just Acuity, working with our, procurement team and, lead times were really impacted due to interruptions in supply. So, we've had to keep a closer eye on our safety stock from a materials and inventory standpoint. Um, our procurement and R&D and demand planning teams touch base more frequently to ensure that we're able to react quickly to any unforeseen changes, whether that's from an ingredient sourcing standpoint or production scheduling. We've, of course, taken measures in terms of making sure that from a safety standpoint, um, we have the plexiglass and temperature checks when employees come into the building that we didn't have before. Um, and then I would say that from a prioritization standpoint, we were really pressure tested by COVID. I mean, we were not expecting the spike in demand that we've seen in our online sales. And so we've had to, rethink how do we continue to give consumers the experience that they're looking for, and deliver our products. So omni-channel has become an increasingly bigger focus for us in partnering closer with our retailers and thinking through how we get consumers to our site and then checking out in other retailers as well.
Okay, great. Thanks, Shruti. So, Seraj, how have you had to adapt to the changed priorities of Shruti and Enjoy Life Foods? She's mentioned in particular there driving to omni-channel through consumer behaviors. How have you supported that change?
So this is you have to really understand, and one of the things you have to realize is I've been in the client service business for over 25 years. Sorry, I'm giving away my age here, but you go into a relationship like this, things are going to have to change in one form or the other, right? If we are going to be delivering on better metrics, we're going to bring greater growth, profitability, and so forth, a lot of things are going to have to change, right? A client wouldn't engage us otherwise if everything was going well. You agree, right? And so by default, you're going to have to bring new ideas, new data, new tools to achieve the targets. Now, earning the client's trust takes commitment and time, and it's investment of time on both sides to really come to productive outcomes, right? And so under normal circumstances, we would leverage our platform using all the AI and machine learning to programmatically optimize towards better business outcomes, right? Algorithms require high volume data, site visits, interactions to optimize over time. That's the game if you really want to build business results, right? Now, the other issue is if you have early stage growth and demand, like in e-commerce and DTC channels, it requires a runway to reach critical mass to achieve all these outcomes, right? Now, that's normal circumstances. Now, add to that three things. COVID, as Shruti mentioned, BLM, which put the entire social media on polarization and other issues that happened on Facebook and boycotts of one sort or the other. Then there is the election year on top of it, right? And now you've got all these supply chain disruptions. I mean, we had the makings of a perfect storm here. So the relationship was tested, truly tested, right? And so while media is flexible in programmatic, and so it's good, of course it helps, but the demand and supply volatility is not our friend when it comes to profit optimization. Now, this is where it took few iterations for us to really go back and forth, as Shruthi pointed out, shifting media spends, balancing between, how we're going to really manage inventory. There is other, expectation management that had to happen with the consumers directly up the site. There might be delays in delivery. So there is an entire end-to-end spectrum that really had to be modified to be able to make sure. And by the time we got around to like fourth quarter, we were definitely onto the results and the challenge that Shruti had actually set at our doorstep. And so we're very fortunate we arrived here, but sometimes you have to go through these tough times, expectedly, unexpectedly, in this particular case, to really get to a positive place where the trust finally comes through and you begin to trust each other that, you know what, regardless of what happens, you're going to come through.
Thank you, Seraj. And actually, that's a perfect segue because we've been talking about how well the partnership has worked and how you've supported each other through the last 24 months. But let's flip that on its head. I want to be more candid, Seraj. What is the hardest part about fostering these successful relationships? Can anything go wrong in your experience?
Oh, many things can go wrong. I've become very, very jaded in that respect. It's almost as though if everything's going well, I begin to suspect that something this is not right. And I think that's really sort of what you expect. If you've been in business long enough, in advertising, in particular digital advertising, things can go wrong, completely unexpectedly. And I think the best requirement on this is really open communications, being able to really talk things out, and not going inward. And many clients actually do go inward, and I think that's a real issue. And I think those, well, like, think about it, what we saw here, right? What do clients sacrifice when the relationships aren't really good? What really happens is the biggest risk is when things do turn around, the recovery process is extremely slow, right? We saw two types of reactions in March last year from clients, literally two different groups. Those who went completely dark and paused all media activity. Fine, if that's what worked for them, so be it, right? Then there were others like ELF who reached out for our opinion on the crisis and sought go forward options. The latter group, this one, recovered faster as the business means. It's about continuity. It's about really open communication. It's about making sure that if you have some minimal connection that you are maintaining over time, it's easy to block out critical resources, have the right talent in place. So when things turn around, you recover really fast. And that's literally what happened here. And I think the other things that are happening is the consumer journey has fragmented across the board. And in that respect, people aren't just going to come to your site to buy everything. They will go to Amazon, they'll go to Walmart, they'll go wherever they want to go. And the business needs to be able to honor the choices. And I think this is really where flexibility really helps. And that's what we've been able to account for here.
Yeah, of course. That's a really good point there, Saraj, about that flexibility piece. And Shruti, I'd like to hear from your perspective as well. What do you think is the hardest part about fostering these successful relationships from the other side of it to where Seraj is sitting?
Yeah, I mean, I think Suraj's point around going inward, I think that's the worst thing you can do in any sort of partnership or relationship, and getting kind of bogged down in the details of the business. I think it's really important to keep partners abreast of what's going on so that you can recover quickly. And I think that's what we did. I mean, like I said earlier, we were really pressure tested by COVID with our direct to consumer supply chain business, and really thinking through what the limitations are there, and being able to have those open conversations with the Acuity team in terms of what we could do in the interim was critical for us, so that we could, create a stopgap solution. And then when we were back up to speed, we could pivot back to what our initial strategic direction was.
Thanks, Shruti. Now, Seraj mentioned that what businesses might be risking if they don't take time in actually putting client-partner relationships at the heart of their strategies, and particularly amidst a time of crisis and uncertainty. What are your thoughts on that? What do you think can be lost if these relationships aren't fostered successfully?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really flexibility, agility, and creative problem solving. I mean, I think all of those things are so critical, especially when you're navigating, uncharted territory and uncertain times. And if you're not really including the client, the partner in the relationship and having a clear understanding of what your goals and strategic priorities are, I think it's really easy to miss out on that creative collaboration that you could achieve the optimal outcome. And then speed too. I think again, like Suraj alluded to it slows you down because they may not know everything that's going on with your business. So bringing them up to speed on that kind of establishes the foundation for trust, and then it allows you to move quicker as well.
Thanks, Shruti. So, Seraj, you mentioned that you've been doing this for 25 plus years. You are obviously very experienced in managing these relationships. And a lot of our audience here, many of whom are obviously CMOs, will be really interested in your perspective on how can you demonstrate ROI in fostering such client-partner focused relationships? Who needs to be convinced at board level that these types of partnerships work? And how do you have these conversations to drive the idea of a partner collaboration?
Mhm. So this is frankly the most fundamental question, right?
Mm.
It's so easy to give a lot of lip service to saying we should be building all these great relationships and doing all the things that we should be doing. We should be over communicating. You hear this a lot in the literature.
Yeah.
But if you have been where I've been in the trenches with these advertisers, the CMOs and the senior marketers, it is expensive to do all of this stuff. This is not cheap. You need talent, you need people, you need time commitment. You have to put all these resources into the relationship. Who does that? It is hard to do. You have to justify that, right? And so I think what I have learned I would say I have had 300 to 400 mega advertiser relationships over the years, right? I can say with confidence and conviction, what I've learned over the years is that if we focus on the client's business and deliver positive impact, the ROI for us will not be an issue, and in general has not been an issue. Now, I personally manage C-level relationships in major client organizations and make sure they get our undivided attention. Shruti, please check me on this if I am actually not being truthful on this, right? Uh, we have the CMO commitment with full organizational support to ensure success for our clients, right? Our clients stay with us for years and frequently take us with them as they move on to more senior roles elsewhere. Frankly, GDS is the validation for us. We've had clients who met with us here and then moved on and went to other organizations and brought us over there and took us there to other organizations with them. That's the sign that they know that we are for them. Our interest is for them, right? We take that very, very seriously, right? We care a lot about advocacy. Essentially, what clients say about Acuity to their peers and colleagues is what matters to us. Frankly, on that note, I will let Shruti do the talking.
Thank you, Seraj. So yes, Shruti, have you
Yeah,
found
I
that
mean,
the experience
I've
is the
worked with
same?
a number. Yeah, I mean, I'm Seraj didn't pay me to say this at all. So, but no, I've worked with a number of agencies, and our relationship with Acuity has been phenomenal. I think that it goes back to saying really understanding the business up front, and then the speed to which they were able to pivot and adjust to our business needs was incredible. And the services they provided from a data standpoint to be able to really go after our niche consumer speaks to the ROI that we were able to deliver in Q4. So I think that just having a true vested interest in our success, results in the partner success as well. So I think just taking the time to understand the nuances of the business is really important upfront.
Thanks, Shruti. So if we look back 24 months, and obviously you met Seraj at an event over in the US, and you decided that this was a particular service or solution that you as a marketeer, that you as an organization really needed in order to grow your marketing efforts. Was it that easy to get it signed off, or did you have to, how did you deliver that internally? What was the communication that you had with your team, with your board, with your C-suite?
Yeah, I think that, so one of the limitations that we had was, I mean, we had a very limited working media budget, and one of the advantages that that Acuity brought was we didn't have to pay a retainer, and so the precision targeting at scale was a lead point that I was making in terms of, we're not only going to get the effectiveness, but we're also going to get the efficiency. And we are not going to have to pay a retainer like we've had to pay in prior relationships with agency partners. So I think those were two critical points. And then also showing the results of what we've had with our trial pack offering and needing a solution that's going to get us more reach. And really being particular about our food allergy consumers. So it wasn't a hard sell because we started small and we really were going to test and optimize our way in. So for those conversations with our CFO was, we're going to prove this out and we're going to really minimize any wasteful spend, so that we can learn as we go and make sure that we're optimizing along the way and we're not going in over our head. And I think that was well received.
Great. Thank you, Shruti. And now I'd like to talk a little bit about internal collaboration, because of course we've talked a bit how you're collaborating as external organizations and as partners. But Seraj, so I'm interested, in the last 12 months, a lot of us have seen the internal workings of our companies change. We've seen that departments are starting to collaborate more with one another. You've got CMOs collaborating with CIOs. But over at Acuity, have you noticed collaboration changing within your own organization to really help fulfill that client-partner relationship requirement that you offer?
Oh, it is critical, absolutely. And so here's the first thing that we had to change. And it took us about 2 months to recognize that there was something fundamentally different in the market. And so because I focus so much of our energies on marketer direct relationships, we know they are the ones who actually need to get the truth right away. They need to know exactly what's going on, what decisions need to be made, and how quickly we can change, right? So internally, we introduced an entirely new group and a team called client success managers. So they are these real evangelists and advocates for a client. We have this one human who is responsible for making sure that everything happens right for the client, right? Now, around that, we introduced a team structure. You may have heard of this called pods, which is a short form for a cross-functional team that gets together every week to review performance on client programs and take action based on market fluctuations. Now, the team makes those optimization decisions with only the client approval. So we discuss it internally within our pods. We figure out what it is that we should be recommending, what should the options be, and then we would bring it to Shruti's team and actually say, guys, these are some of the things we are thinking about. These are the changes we are recommending. Do you agree? Can we go ahead and do that? So it's always happens with client's approval, but we are doing a lot of homework internally to making sure that we are focused on the business and the impact that the business really needs to see based on changes that are happening. So that was a huge change for us. And we had to get the CEO's commitment to do that, recognizing fully well that, this is an investment on our part, but it might pay out over the year, 2 years, what have you. And frankly, it paid off big time for us starting in Q4. And frankly, if you look at our numbers in Q1, it is phenomenal. It's fantastic.
Great. Thanks, Seraj. And Shruti, on this conversation of internal collaboration, how have you seen your role as marketing director have to change in terms of internal collaborative partnerships? Are there other roles that you're working with a lot more that you didn't used to work with? And how do you see that changing over the next 12 months, for example?
So I would say, I think there's just more pressure in terms of delivering results, right? I think that really being able to see through in terms of that full funnel conversion and know that your media investment is driving results, whether that's in, brick and mortar from panel data or it's driving direct to consumer sales, there's just more pressure. And I think that as marketers right now, I mean, there's so much, like we alluded to earlier, like with going on in the social and political environment, that we have to be able to react in real time and really keep internally everyone abreast of the issues that we're facing externally and how we're going to resolve those. So we've created teams internally in terms of just crisis management teams to be able to kind of weather the storm. And it's just forced, increased collaboration, making sure that we're, continuously communicating with one another and working through these plans in advance as much as we can, but knowing that we're going to have to pivot when needed.
Great, thank you, Shruthi. Some really interesting insight there. Now, we do have quite a few audience questions lined up for you both. So I would like to jump over into the audience Q&A now so that we can bring some of our delegates onto the stage so they can ask you both whatever questions they might have for you. So it's my pleasure to first of all welcome Nicholas from Mattel up to the stage today. Hi, Nicholas, great to see you. Hope you're well. Nicholas, who is your question to, or is it to both of our panelists?
Hi, my question is for Shruthi. Very interesting, your DTC changes and everything. Mattel has been obviously thinking about DTC for a while and working on this. I guess like the biggest challenge that I see is how to not upset the clients or retailers when you're launching your DTC platform. And I want to have your thoughts on as to like how did you manage this challenge?
Great question. Shruthi, go ahead.
Yeah, I think the challenge, I think it's making sure that you have differentiated offerings and then you're not competing with them on price, of course. So, so with some of our offerings and our bundles, we had some online exclusives that consumers couldn't get in the store, like that trial pack or even seasonal bundles that we were putting together. In terms of pricing, we are definitely price premium to retail. So I think that reduces some of the tension that retailers will experience, because consumers who are purchasing on our site oftentimes are the ones who either just want to buy it from us because we're the trusted source, given that they have, really strict food allergy concerns and they feel more comfortable buying it directly from us. And then the second piece is they just may not be able to find it. So coming to us directly and being able to purchase it on our site gives them that safety, alleviates some of those safety concerns, as well as just the availability piece. So, we haven't had any pushback from retailers given our pricing strategy.
Thanks, Shruthi. Nicholas, is that something that you're anticipating when you launch?
Oh, Mattel has launched their platform.
But this new DTC you mentioned.
But yes, like we're targeting collectors mostly. So it's a similar type of idea, premium and so on.
Great, thank you so much. And thanks for joining us on stage with your question, Nicholas. Really appreciate that, thank you. So we have another member of our audience who would like to jump up to ask their question. Soumya from Kerry Group, who we saw earlier today. Hello, great to see you. Great to have you back. Who is your question directed at today, Soumya?
Sure. My question is for Shruthi, specifically because we're probably looking at the product life cycles shifting so considerably within the past year, because people have gone to the omni-channel model of purchasing, and like Seraj said, that it's now disrupted, right? The consumer journey is now fragmented. Specifically in the food and beverage, right, that snacking segment, have you noticed that the product life cycle has shifted? We always focus on rapid product development, but what is rapid product development in a COVID environment where people are shopping so rapidly? There has been pantry stocking. How has your innovation cycle shifted? And how have you pivoted with insights, with marketing, with strategy, aligning with supply chain? Can you tell us a little bit about the pieces that shifted and the challenges that you overcame?
Sure. I think that one of the things that we've always valued is just we have our database of consumers. And so we've been able to tap into that for direct feedback from consumers. and get their thoughts. So I think in this environment, I mean, when the lockdown first started back in March, we were getting consumers reaching out because they weren't able to find our products on shelf. And so we were doing our best to keep up with demand, and whether they were buying it through our online direct to consumer channel or through omni-channel. But I think at the end of the day, I think innovation, particularly for our consumer, they're looking for new products, because once they find a brand that they can trust, especially for the food allergy consumer, and there's that inherent trust and safety with the brand, making sure that we stay on top of our game from an innovation standpoint, launching new products is imperative, but it's managing the economics of that too. So we've been going direct to consumers to get feedback versus doing really large studies. I think that's the advantage of having direct to consumer, right? You control that full relationship with your full value chain is what you're controlling, and you're able to test certain products, get feedback, and then optimize those products before you do a full launch. So the investment or the risk is a lot lower than if you were to do a full scale test with investing the capital and the manufacturing equipment. You can do it on a small scale and then see if it actually resonates with the consumer, and then invest further if it's successful.
Thanks, Shruti. I wonder, Seraj, do you have anything to add on this point? You might have some good insight
Yeah,
here.
I think when you're managing the DTC channel, there is also the element of packaging innovation and also the whole experience into the home. All of that matters as well, because generally, if you're selling to retail, is the retailer who's putting the stuff on the shelf, they control that experience. But if you're running DTC yourself, you have a lot of control over that, and you can make a lot of changes there in the way Shruti was talking about earlier, in terms of how you bundle the products, how do you bring the assortment together, get people to try different things that they would otherwise not look at, right? All of those things you can actually do when you have that direct relationship with the consumer.
Thanks, Seraj, and thanks, Samia, for jumping up with your question today. Thank you so much. So, Shruti and Seraj, we have one last question from our audience, from Andrew, who is with Nativo. Hi, Andrew, welcome to the stage. We've got you. There we go. Please do go ahead and direct your question to either Shruti or Seraj.
Hey, thanks for sharing that story. Acuity has a great reputation for doing great optimization through programmatic. So that was a really interesting story. Shruti, I have a specific question about, and I guess I want to share a bias. I think we rely on companies like Acuity to do third-party data targeting and hardcore optimization. But I also believe that with the coming cookieless world, the message of your content and the value of your products becomes even more important. So I'm just wondering, on your side, how quickly and effectively can you create new content in case with, in 2022, when third-party cookies go away, we may not have the optimization levers that you might have currently?
Thank you, Andrew. I think we missed a little bit of the question there. Could you ask just the question part again for us, and then Shruti can deliver her answer. Thank you.
So, Shruti, I guess my question is, if Acuity says, hey, we need new content, we need new offers, we need new creative, how quickly do you guys focus on that to turn it around to make the advertising effective?
Great, thank you.
Sure. So we have an in-house graphic designer who's fabulous. So we were able to make any tweaks to the creative based on if we needed to do campaign optimizations. And then the other piece too, we didn't do this past year, but if we needed any sort of video creative production capabilities, Acuity has a lot of partners that they work with that they offered to us that we could potentially tap into. But a lot of the things that we were doing were in-house and making tweaks to the creative as needed when we had to pivot from moving from the trial pack lead offer campaign to more awareness driving messaging campaigns.
That's a very, very important question. So glad you actually brought it up, because so much of the messaging control that the brands are looking for is throughout the journey experience, right? Decisions that are made, whether it's awareness level or engagement, or even at the very lower end of the funnel, right? Where the real focus is on selling stuff and very performance oriented. So as brands are shifting focus across the entire journey, you do need access to that content to be able to let the machine learning and the AI to really test different combinations of those things to really find the optimal journey to sort of closure, right? Reduce annoyance, reduce the amount of advertising, reduce waste, build more efficiency, and the ideal path to conversion. I think all of that becomes extremely critical. So with having that in-house facility that ELF has, was absolutely an advantage for us to have, because many times if you go to an outside production partners or you go to agencies or what have you, it could take a few cycles before you actually get something back, right? If you really want to go into the fast optimization. And so there are ways to really accommodate that. And I think that's why the question you asked is so, so important, very relevant.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate having you with us on stage. So, Seraj, Shruthi, that is it for our session today. Thank you so much for joining us. It's so great to see such advocates of how partnerships can work. So thank you so much, and we will speak to you both shortly. And obviously, see you here next year, of course. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chloe. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And thank you for the audience. You're
Thank
very
you, Chloe.
Not at all. Thank you.